Avoidant attachment is really tough when it comes to relationships and breakups. Avoidants can be really hard to read and understand because they just don't let you in. You never know how they feel or what they're going to do next, leaving you stuck in limbo. So I wanted to shed some light on how they handle breakups and talk about how you can know for sure that your avoidant ex is truly never coming back. And the first sign that I'm going to talk about is vital to know because in the vast majority, over 70% of cases, it means that an avoidant is gone for good and you need to move on with your life. So let's talk about this first sign, and that is number one, they ghosted you. Yes, this is the number one sign that your avoidant ex is never coming back. Now, many people think that avoidants do this because they were never really serious about things in the first place. And while that can be a contributing factor, in most cases, it has more to do with how avoidant psychology actually works. Basically, the avoidant is scared to connect. And this means they'll struggle to make their needs clear and to set boundaries. In fact, there's a feeling among avoidants that they don't have any real emotional needs. They're tough loners who can do it all on their own. And of course, that's not true, but it's something that they've internalized since childhood. So you may cross their boundaries or fail to meet their needs. And because they have this belief about themselves, they won't complain. Every time you fall short, which is going to happen because, they won't tell you what they want, they just stifle their feelings. And this wounded silence is really a surefire recipe for resentment. And as the resentment builds, the idea that the relationship isn't working gets louder and louder in their minds until they can just no longer ignore it. And by the time it's reached that point, it's going to feel unfixable to them. They'll think that the only way to relieve this feeling is to get as far away from you as they can, and to minimize how hard that will be, they'll do it as fast as possible. But, as I'm sure you know, this doesn't really work. They end up feeling a lot of guilt and shame for treating you this way because they know that they hurt you by disappearing out of nowhere. They know how it would feel if you treated them that way, and so they're pretty broken up about it. And this is why they never return after ghosting you. They know that you're very upset with them, and rightfully so. They also remember all of the issues the relationship had that they were unable to bring up. So when they look back, they just see a broken relationship and a jilted ex. They know that they have no real remedy for that, and so they stay away for good. Now, there are a couple of caveats here. This number is based on a self-reported study of a small number of avoidants who have admitted to ghosting people. So it's not super comprehensive, but it is straight from the source, and that is the avoidants themselves. And also, when I talk about ghosting, I'm talking about true ghosting, where your ex cuts off contact fully and quickly rather than slowly fading away. So there was no huge fight or anything that might have signaled the end of the relationship. Things may have seemed just a little off or even totally normal, and then they were gone. And this is a gray area, but basically, the sharper the drop-off in communication, the worse the odds that they're coming back. And number two is when it's been over a year. So the thing about avoidance is that they do often come back and try to reconnect with you after time has passed. So here's the typical pattern. Things start to feel too serious, and they end things and they pull away. And this brings them a lot of relief because they no longer feel trapped by the relationship. But as time passes, they start to realize that their reason for ending things was just a pretense to get space from you. And now that they have that space, the relief that they felt is slowly being replaced by the feeling that they made a mistake, by feelings of missing you more than anything else. And this is the moment when your avoidant ex is going to pop back up in your life. Maybe they'll apologize and spill their guts, or maybe they'll play it cool and act like nothing happened. But either way, they'll typically do this within the first 3 months or not at all. The chances that an avoidant ex returns peaks at around the 1 month, 30-day mark. And after 90 days, it starts to really fall off a cliff. Basically, by the time it's been a year, you should give up any hope of seeing them again, unless it was a very, very, serious long-term relationship. We're talking, 5+ years together. And let's move on to number 3, which is they minimize the relationship. Now, this is another way that an avoidant will hurt you and continue to hurt you after the breakup. And if they're able to do it effectively, at least in their own minds, they'll get over you quite quickly. And I'm talking about how they downplay the connection that the two of you had. And this is going to probably make you feel crazy, like you were some obsessed stalker who they never even cared about at all. They'll make it seem like, you're exaggerating, crafting a relationship that was never really there at all. But this is really a consistent strategy that we see with avoidance. They don't say these things because they're true. They don't even say them because they never cared for you. In reality, this is just another strategy of avoidance, of creating distance. So they downplay the relationship because it did mean something to them. They know that admitting that to themselves means admitting that they're sad and that they miss you. It means admitting that they treated you poorly and hurt you. And above all else, admitting that the relationship was significant means admitting that they pushed another person away because they were scared and are, once again, all alone in the world. So if they can lie to you and to the world about these things, then they can lie to themselves, at least on some level. And if they can do that, then they can move on and leave you behind. Now, I do need to say quickly, that as it is with almost all of the behavior that I'm talking about in this video, this is a subconscious process that generally they're not aware of. So if you were to ask your ex if they were trying to downplay the relationship in order to make getting over you easier, they'd say no, and they'd probably be telling the truth because all of this is happening on a deep level and it's driving their behavior from behind the scenes, but they're not even aware of it. Now, this isn't super surprising. If you know that avoidants don't typically have a lot of access to their own emotions, but I thought I'd mention it anyways. Now, obviously, this doesn't excuse them for treating you badly, but it's important that you know that they don't always understand the reasons behind their own actions. And number 4 is they start dating somebody new. Now, the jury is still out on whether or not avoidants are more likely to cheat on their partners. There haven't really been many good studies on the subject. But in my experience, avoidants don't seem to cheat more than others, but their reasons are often different. So as we'll talk about with escape routes, they often do this because they want to create emotional distance from their partners. They want somebody new who doesn't have the same emotional needs as their partners. A relationship where they can be free to connect without there being expectations and pressure. Now, of course, they always find that this new person has plenty of emotional needs once they actually get to know them. But that initial stage is very attractive to an avoidant. Everyone's on their best behavior, trying to pretend like they're chill and have no expectations of the other person. And this goes for both affair partners and for rebound relationships. So if they have to choose between somebody new who seems to have zero problems and expectations, or you, someone who they broke up with because things were getting too intense, it's very common that they'll leave you behind. Now, it's hard to say, but this is unfortunately a pattern that I do see quite often. Now, of course, there are times when the avoidant and the rebound don't last and they end up coming back around, but this isn't going to be for a while and it's not something that you can count on. So it's best to act as though it's probably over for good. And that brings us to number 5, which is you scored less than 60 on my free quiz. So if you have taken my free quiz over at breakupbrad.com/quiz, you'll already know this, but getting a score under 55 or 60 is not good for your chances of winning your avoidant ex back. It's a pretty clear indication that they're not going to come back on their own. You can find out why, and you can take the quiz for yourself at breakupbrad.com/quiz after the video. And number 6 is if they were keeping secrets. One of the hallmarks of avoidance is that they'll always keep an escape route open. They fear being trapped in a relationship, so they make sure that can never happen by leaving themselves a way to remove themselves from the situation, no matter how close the relationship gets. Now, I've heard people call this an escape plan, but I think that's giving too much credit to the avoidant there and too much blame for this kind of behavior. Because for most avoidants, this isn't really a conscious process. They don't go, I'm afraid of getting close to this person, so I better put together a plan in case I want to make a quick exit. And these things are, not typically some elaborate plan in a binder where they shave their head, go off the grid, and, you never find them again. This isn't Gone Girl. It's a lot more subtle and internal. And again, their buried emotions will drive them to act in ways that they're not even aware of. Now, this can be a physical, practical escape route, like having a go bag in case they need to suddenly dip out. It can mean they've hidden some money. I've even known avoidants who will move in with a partner, but secretly keep their old apartment or house. But more often, it's just going to be a mental and emotional escape route. So they'll find ways to stop themselves from getting too close to you. They think that if they don't rely on you emotionally, then if you break up, they're not going to feel as much pain. And cheating could be another escape route for avoidance. And this includes full-on infidelity, but also so many sort of sub-cheating behaviors. For example, many avoidants will keep close friendships with their exes or with people who they're romantically interested in. And these friendships don't need to, cross the line into anything that you could ever call physical or even emotional cheating. They may be totally platonic with these people on paper, but there is that spark there that they both know could become a flame if they let it. And this is essentially a backup partner. They fear having their heart broken by your relationship. Because they have a backup, they know that there will be someone there to pick up the pieces, and they won't have to be alone for long or lose that sense of emotional connection that the two of you have. And on top of that, it means that they have a secret. Now, secrets can be very comforting for an avoidant because a secret is like a wall between you and them. This is pretty obvious with big secrets like hiding future plans or lying about money. These things would damage a relationship even if they were out in the open. But even smaller, seemingly harmless secrets can sort of pile up to create a barrier between you and this person. They've essentially carved out parts of themselves that you don't have access to, because the more they're hiding, the more you don't know about their life. And so they're never actually being vulnerable. They're putting on a performance for you, so they never have to really connect with you. So if your ex was lying about things that don't seem to actually matter, then this is often what was behind it. It was a subconscious attempt to create secrets that separated them from you emotionally. And if they were able to keep up this charade, through the relationship and after the breakup, maintain their escape route, then it's safe to say that they're a long way from you now and you're not likely to see them again. But sometimes during a breakup, all these secrets come out and it can actually bring the two of you together in certain ways. Of course, you have to decide if you can ever trust somebody who's able to lie to your face. And that begs the question, what if they do come back? As I said, even if they ghosted you, there's still a 1 in 3 chance that your ex will come back around at some point. Maybe they'll be trying to get closure. Maybe they'll be trying to weasel their way back into your life. So what do you do then? Well, I think that you need to think back to all that we've talked about today. And beyond that, all of the ways that your ex has hurt you during the relationship and the breakup. All the times they broke your trust, pushed you away, took you for granted, and treated you like an imposition in your life. And then you need to ask yourself if you really actually want to give them another chance. Because, while this avoidant behavior was super destructive to you, it clearly didn't work for them. They weren't able to really guard their heart against you. They weren't able to remove the relationship cleanly from their life and move on, totally unattached. They weren't able to move on. Instead, it's the opposite. It makes them realize that they do need someone in their life to be close to, and that person is you. And it's then, when the avoidant finally comes back, that they see that the way that they treated you actually did have a powerful impact, just not on them. You're the one who bore the brunt of it. And by the time they realize their mistake, you've already moved on. All right, that brings us to the end of today's video. I hope you now have a better sense of what goes on in an avoidant's head and how to tell that they've actually moved on and are not going to be coming back. If you do decide to give it another shot, I recently made a video about getting your avoidant ex back, which I'll link to in the description below and also in the corner here for you. In any case, thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Thanks for liking, subscribing, and for everything you do to support my channel. Best of luck, and bye for now.